Okay, hold on. Imagine this. You're in a band and life's all good. But then, out of nowhere, you meet the girl of your dreams, but here's the kicker. She has 7 evil exes, and guess what? You have to fight them, one by one, in an epic battle for her love. Sounds like the plot of the most absurd rock and roll fantasy, right? Welcome to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Let's talk about Scott Pilgrim himself, played by the one and only Michael Cera. A guy who can barely keep his life together, let alone fight 7 evil exes for the woman he wants. Can you imagine? This dude's got no game in the relationship department, but he's so blissfully unaware of how messy things are. It's like watching a rock star try to juggle his band, his awkwardly weird dating life, and a video game world where reality and fantasy blend together in the most chaotic way possible. So first things first, Scott is dating this super young girl, Knives Chow. She's sweet, she's in high school, and she worships the ground Scott walks on. But here's the thing. Scott's already cheating on her with Ramona Flowers, a woman who just happens to have the aforementioned 7 evil exes. Now, Scott might seem like a decent guy at first glance, but let's be real, the dude's got zero respect for Knives. You gotta love how Scott's life is a mess even before he realizes he's got a bunch of evil exes to defeat. Can we just talk about how bad that is, though? Like, imagine being Knives. You're obsessed with some guy who doesn't even have the decency to break up with you first. Scott Pilgrim, you dog. So Scott starts dating Ramona, and everything goes off the rails. He's in love, like, deeply, madly, truly in love, but he's not just fighting for her affection. Oh no, he's got to fight her 7 evil exes. And each ex is more bizarre than the last. I mean, you've got a vegan who gains superpowers from his plant-based diet, and a rock star who is basically the embodiment of every bad breakup song you've ever heard. And don't even get me started on the whole evil ex-villain team-up, because what else would you expect in a movie that's just one massive video game battle but with feelings and consequences? But here's where it gets even crazier. The whole movie feels like a hybrid between a music video, a video game, and a comic book. Imagine people flying through the air like they're in some next-level arcade game, punching through walls, and getting one-up power-ups after each fight. Yeah, it's that insane. But Scott, being Scott, doesn't even get it half the time. It's like he's stuck in some alternate reality where he has no idea how bad he is at all of this. How does this guy survive anything, let alone battle 7 superpowered exes? But there's something about Scott Pilgrim that's strangely relatable. He's this lovable loser who's trying to navigate his way through the chaos of his personal life, his band, and his quest for Ramona's heart. He's flawed, like, seriously flawed, but that's what makes him human. The movie doesn't just play with video game-style battles. Oh no, it goes deeper. It's about growing up, facing your mistakes, and learning how to stop running away from your issues. If only Scott Pilgrim had gotten that memo a bit earlier, though. So let's talk about those exes. They're wild. Seriously, how do you even compete against a guy who's a psychic? A guy who's a vegan and literally punches Scott in the face with his vegan powers? Or what about the most twisted ex-couple who's a literal evil version of Ramona's ex and his lesbian ex-girlfriend? The most absurd thing about the whole movie is that Scott doesn't even fully acknowledge the insanity of these battles. He just keeps swinging his fists like a dude who's just realized he has no idea what's happening, and that makes it so much funnier. But here's the thing, it's not all about fighting. Scott has to face his own flaws. As the movie unfolds, he starts to realize that maybe he's been a bit of a jerk. He's not as cool as he thinks he is. And Ramona, well, she's not perfect either. They've both got baggage, and they're both running from their pasts. So, after all the epic fight scenes, explosions, and pixelated effects, we get this moment of clarity. Scott's not just fighting these exes for Ramona, he's fighting for his own redemption. This movie, man, it makes you think about your life and the decisions you make. Maybe not your dating decisions, please don't do what Scott did, but your personal growth. Can you imagine fighting your past exes, both literally and metaphorically? That's deep, bro. But wait, let's not forget about the random but hilarious side characters that completely steal the show. I'm talking about Scott's bandmates, who couldn't care less about his personal life as long as they get their band to the next level. There's Wallace, Scott's gay roommate, who's constantly stealing the show with the most sarcastic comments, and who ends up being the most sane person in the movie. There's Steven Stills, the frontman of the band who's just trying to make it big, and Kim, the ex-girlfriend who low-key hates Scott but is also probably the most grounded of them all. They're like the perfect ensemble of supporting characters who add that extra layer of quirkiness that you didn't know you needed. Let's face it, Scott Pilgrim vs. The World is an absurd ride. It's a coming-of-age movie wrapped in video game aesthetics, with epic battles that somehow always feel like they don't make sense, and yet it works. Because in the end, we're all just trying to survive our own personal battles, trying to figure out our own flaws, and trying to find someone to love, even if that means fighting through a sea of crazy exes. Who knew that an over-the-top video game parody would become such a heartfelt story about growing up, finding love, and accepting yourself? So, do yourself a favor and watch Scott Pilgrim vs. The World. And when you do, just ask yourself this: would you have survived the 7 evil exes? Or would you have been knocked out by the first one with the vegan superpowers? The real question is whether Scott even deserved Ramona after all that, but you'll have to watch it to figure that out. Spoiler alert, the answer is probably not.